for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion, that they may believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but took pleasure in unrighteousness.
Hi guys, this is going to be my review of the EP, The Ascension of Extinction by Symphony of Heaven. I had a little conversation with Logan Thompson, or Pathos, the founder of the band, and I asked him some things and he let me know some things. So I have some interesting information. Symphony of Heaven started as a solo project by Logan Thompson, or Pathos. I'll just call Logan Pathos from now on. Now Pathos got a fire in his belly to do a project, and that's how Symphony of Heaven started. But since then, he's added new members. The current members of the band are Logan Thompson, otherwise known as Pathos, who does guitars and vocals, Mason Beard, otherwise known as Asaf, who does drums, David Napier, otherwise known as Tamoretus, who does bass, and finally we have Eero Tertsonen, who does guitars. Now, how the writing started for this EP is that Pathos got an inclination to write a single called You Shall Be As Gods. Upon finishing the single You Shall Be As Gods, Pathos soon found that he wanted to actually make a full EP out of this. So he went ahead and wrote 2 other songs to go with the EP. After doing some more writing, he checked with his bandmates to see what they thought of his work. So the first 3 songs were accounted for. With that said, Eero actually came up with the last song on the EP. So Pathos wrote the first 3 songs, which are You Shall Be As Gods, The Ascension of Extinction, and Death March. And Eero came up 100% with the song Mountain of Man's Ignorance. Now, all of the artists in the EP have similar themes, but they get them from different sources. Pathos originally programmed in the drums for the standalone single You Shall Be As Gods, but for continuity's sake he decided to do programming on the drums for all the rest of the songs. Now, I'm not entirely sure on this, but what my understanding is of this is that some of the lyrics from this EP were passed on from Carl of Pantocrator to Pathos. And why this is interesting is because Logan doesn't know for sure if the lyrics passed on from him from Pantocrator came from Skald and Viam or not, specifically Mund or Heth. There was the name Mund mentioned, there was the name Heth mentioned. Heth is the spiritual leader of the band Skald and Viam, and Mund is the vocalist for Skald and Viam. And Mund does a part on the second song, Ascension to Extinction. The reason that it's a possibility at all that Mund or Heth could have had an influence on the lyrics is that Mund's part came from Carl of Pantocrator. Apparently Carl from Pantocrator knows either Mund or Heth or both of them. So that's why it's interesting how the lyrics could have come from Mund or Heth. Now, if the lyrics are coming from Skald and Viam, I would really expect them to come from Heth and not Mund, because Heth is the one that did the lyrics on Stridslisten. Of course, no one really knows anything about Skald and Viam. I mean, the members are basically Cloak and Dagger. Nobody knows who they actually are. Although it's kind of a mystery how Mund ended up on the album, it is kind of something that flowed naturally, as I got that impression based on Pathos telling me that they're in studio right now and they're writing music for a full-length album, which is going to be really cool. I got this idea from the fact that Pathos said, I expect there to be some guest appearances, but I think it's going to happen naturally. It's just interesting how some of this stuff works. Now, surprisingly enough, the EP does have a little bit of a political undertones to it. in terms of the theme in the music, Pathos was thinking that there could very well be the idea of communism and humanism overshadowing Christianity, and how this could be a rise to those that are lost being deceived by the Antichrist. So this is his opinion, and he thinks that communism might be that in, that Marxism might be that in, that a world government leader comes in and the lost will submit to him. This all came about when Pathos was thinking about how influential Bernie Sanders was as a communist in the Democratic Party. Earlier on, when he was writing this, Bernie Sanders was in contention for the nominee for the Democratic Party. But this is sort of a combatant to that, and so it's very immediate, the thinking behind this album. However, it does have a larger context, I want to say, based on Mund's part of the Ascension of Extinction. There's a sort of advancement of a sort of culminating, climaxing thing happening, that the way that Pathos, and I can't speak for Skald and Viam, and I'm sure Pathos says he can't speak for Skald and Viam, but they might be thinking about this in similar terms as well. So these three songs really have to do with sort of, in some sense, combating the fact of a communist takeover. And even the last song on the EP, the one Iero wrote, seems to stick with this theme. It's based on the book God and the Astrologers. So there are political and spiritual themes throughout this EP. Now let's get into the categories, shall we? The whole categories of how I have this rated as an album is pretty good, pretty even throughout. So first of all, on the rhythm and weight of the notes, this is a pretty good showing. The rhythm and weight of the notes really must be understood through the lens of black metal with death metal influences. Now, the rhythm in this thing is fairly fast. They strum the guitar fast, the drums are going fast. It's a pretty fast record. A lot of that has to do with the black metal influences that are so prevalent throughout this album. The drums they're pretty good. They keep the steady beat, and they do it at a fast pace. So overall, a pretty strong showing, I want to say. So I'm going to put that at about a 2.1 out of 2.5. Now, in terms of the notes and weight of the depth, this is a good showing here, with pockets of complexity peeking through in all the instruments, really, I would say. It's well composed musically. So ultimately, I'm going to give that a 2.1 out of 2.5. Now, in the depth in comparison to the listenability, this is their best category. They really do a good job here. They make these complex things, and they make it really listenable. And that's really what you want for this category. In light of the composition, like I've been saying, it really must be understood that this is a black metal piece, EP, and it should be understood that there's death metal influences, but this is a very genre-defining EP that I would say really goes in line with that particular genre. The playing is very smooth, it's very listenable. Now, what makes this particular category so good is that there is a level of depth there, and they do have some atmospheric tones in there, either synth work or a noise samples, something like that, filling in things. And this adds to the depth in light of the listenability. It just makes it a smooth experience to listen to. So this is a really good category for them. I'm going to put this at a 2.4 out of 2.5. Really excellent job there. Now, the listenability in terms of the rhythm is pretty good. It's not as good as the other categories, but it's still above average, I would say. It flows well from one track to the next throughout the album. This is one thing that I do appreciate about it. And I would say that the Mountain of Man's Ignorance is a little bit of a turn in a different direction. It's the grooviest track off the EP. So the Mountain of Ignorance kind of has a offsetting playing to it after Death March ends with this sort of climactic, sort of aggressive, powerful feel of a song, and then Mountain of Man's Ignorance comes in and really gets that groove going, that really smooth groove going. So ultimately, if Mountain of Man's Ignorance was a little bit more in line with the rest of the songs on the album, I would say this would be at least a 2, but this, as it is, it's going to be a 1.8. So overall, that's going to put it at an 8.4 out of 10. Good, strong rating, really good EP. Would recommend checking it out, getting it, buying the CD, all that. So guys, that was my review for the Ascension of Extinction by Symphony of Heaven. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.